Hello there, good morning, welcome Monday 3rd of November. I was off last week, it was half term, so we've done another paper review as of this morning, and just a few things that go through in the Monday papers. If you've not seen this before, I go through some articles and just try and relate it how it's relevant to your businesses or the businesses of your clients. And I must say, this Monday morning and over the weekend in the paper reviews, there's not been much major catastrophe news or anything really grabbing the headlines. It tends to focus around Europe, what Cameron is saying about pulling out of Europe and the attacks from UKIP within and the right-wing Conservatives within his own party, and that was going to affect your businesses and the regional businesses in the future if we do pull out of Europe or if we stay in, or any quota changes on staff, shortages of labour. He's certainly arguing with Merkel at the moment. There was an article in by Helen Worrell in the FT this morning about Merkel warns Cameron over freedom of movement within the EU. We do know a lot of our clients do have staff from various parts of Europe, so I cannot see anything really majorly changing within the early part of next year, but do watch that space. But staying with staff, there was an interesting article in the Times by James Hurley, which is fears grow over weakening exports. I must say a lot of our clients are performing very well on the export front. On a personal point of view, I do wonder whether exports are sometimes slightly overplayed, but certainly sometimes by one of the major clearing banks maybe, and I think HSBC are refocusing some of their efforts back within the UK, because although exports is a great opportunity for a lot of businesses and should by no means be ignored, there are significant gains to be made within the UK itself. Just an alternative view for you to ponder there. But this is fears global weakening exports. This was actually a report done by the ICAW, our own institute, saying that 1 in 5 companies are struggling and are seeing exports flattening. And they basically blame 2 areas. First of all, the capital expenditure required to be able to produce product to be able to export, but most importantly, they blame staff shortages, skilled labour shortages and high turnover in staff. I have to say that article is nicely followed in the Telegraph and in the business pages of the Telegraph, which basically points directly to the skill shortages and the lack of UK apprenticeships. I'm pleased to say that I've just become on the governors of the new Leeds Technical College, as we hope to develop the obviously we're going to be redoing that. Okay, good morning. Welcome to Monday 3rd of November for our Monday morning paper review, where we just go through some of the articles in the press on a Monday morning and relate them to your own businesses or the businesses of your clients. We didn't do it last week, I was off for half term, but it's nice to be back, and I think we will start with, there isn't anything really major in the press this Monday morning. Effectively, Europe and Cameron's relationship with Europe is hitting the headlines, and a few other minor stories, but there isn't anything major grabbing the headlines, which is the same across all the business front pages of the business press. We'll start with Europe. Interesting in the Financial Times, and Helen Worrell, who has been actually based in Berlin at the moment, who writes for the FT, it says here, Merkel warns Cameron over freedom of movement within the EU. This might be relevant to some of you who have manufacturing businesses or employ on any basis EU labour, that Cameron is suggesting that they put a quota on it. Obviously UKIP want us to pull out of Europe, so does some of the right-wing Tory backbenchers. So how this affects your business in the future is interesting. But Merkel's taking a stance to say that if you do put a quota on Mr Cameron, then we are going to effectively force your exit out of the EU, which will be music to a lot of people's ears. But staying with Labour, and not the political party but employed labour, there is an article in the Times this morning over fears growing over weakening exports. and this is written by James Hurley. James writes quite a bit of stuff in the Times, but he is freelance. I've read quite a lot of his articles, and it's interesting. This report is done by the ICAW, who's our own institute. And they're blaming that 1 in 5 companies are really struggling to export. I don't know if that rings true with yourselves. We have a lot of clients who are exporting very well. But the ICAW blame 2 factors for almost a flattening of export activity, primarily one being capital investment expectation, but the other being labour. They're saying we have a shortage of skilled labour and high labour turnover, which is very interesting when you consider what we were talking about in the FT and the freedom of labour movement, and also saying some of our clients employ staff from the EU. And staying with Labour, again, not the political party, but in the Telegraph this morning, there's a nice article that says, written by Eric Bionio, which is in the Viewpoint section, which is UK engineering shortage must and can be fixed. I'm pleased to say that there is a new Leeds Technical College being formed by a friend of mine, Phil Ball, and we have taken a position as Finance Governor on that board to help the skills shortages within the Yorkshire region. And I mean, Eric in this point says, get it right and our young people won't just have the skills to get great jobs, they'll be pioneers of UK innovation. I must say this has been on the cards for 12, 18 months, 2 years about the skills shortages. It is catching up, and I think we run various manufacturing dinners and conversation shared around a table. And a lot of clients will say that skill shortages, not just in manufacturing, but in engineering, right throughout, even in technology companies, it's skill shortages which is the main threat to businesses at the moment. I don't know if that rings true with yourselves. Then a couple of weeks ago I did mention, and I certainly blogged recently about Devo Max for Scotland and the devolutionary arguments, and the fact that power was given to Scotland and how that was going to relate to the UK. And whether England were going to have Devo Max, and if they did, what about the Northern Axis? And my point was is Yorkshire at the moment has different LEPs and different political and economic agendas within different cities, and unless they start to be unified, then they're not going to really be able to take the lion's share of funding that comes from Whitehall. And this is an article here by Andrew Critchlow which says rates reform worth 4.4 billion to the north, effectively saying that according to the findings Manchester would receive 1.3 billion while the local economy in Leeds and surrounding areas of Yorkshire would benefit from retaining 1.1 billion of revenue from the tax on businesses, meaning that if they kept the taxes which they raised on businesses with rates in their regional economies, that would be the additional funding. Very interesting to the north-south divide. If you're taking a north-south divide and giving more powers to Scotland, there is lots of people who say the north should have more powers. It was interesting, when I was off last week, I did read an article in the FT about high-speed trains, high-speed 2, high-speed 3 in the future, and how that's going to fit together, and the fact that commuter time between Leeds and Manchester would only be 20 minutes, which was very interesting in itself. So finally, finishing with Manchester then, Manchester Tram blazes new trail for transport funding. A lot of you will complain about a lack of transport links within Yorkshire. How does that affect your businesses? It regularly comes up when we're talking with clients. It's unfortunately not something that we can do a lot about as BHP in advising our clients, apart from working on plans and strategies to overcome hurdles. But this is basically saying here, and Helen Pidd, the Northern editor, saying Chancellor sees £400 million scheme as a model for local control of big schemes, which was the new Manchester Links scheme. The success of this, the Chief Executive of Transport for Greater Manchester, John Lamont, basically said is, we were successful because Whitehall left us alone. So interesting regional debates in the economy at the moment and how that's going to affect your business. And the other thing I think is the staff, skilled staff, the shortage of staff, what's happening with Europe, how that's going to affect your business in the future. There are various things certainly with the staff that we can help on as a firm. I hope you have a good week and I look forward to seeing you next Monday.